Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the fourth segment of day one of the Big Data Forum, which focuses again on the transformational role of big data technologies and analytics. But in this fourth segment of today, we will try to focus in on the platforms of intelligence using the cloud technology Azure to accelerate digital transformation, looking at the issue of data lakes, artificial intelligence, and predictive analytics and security. But we'll also take a look at how cloud technology can support the development of a center of big data analytics in the Caribbean, an issue that came up and was discussed in our first Big Data Forum about a year ago. In this fourth segment, and now in the coming 45 minutes, we have an exciting panel that will be leading us through this discussion, led by the keynote speaker, Herbert Lewy, and joined by Irwin Williams and Dr. Maurice McNaughton. And just to provide you with a little bit of a background of our very exciting and very experienced panel this afternoon, Herbert Lewy is the General Manager and Chief Digital Transformation Officer of Microsoft in the Caribbean. His responsibilities include, of course, continuing to drive Microsoft's transformation and lead local Microsoft teams to support customers and partners to seize business opportunities in the era of digital transformation. Prior to this, Mr. Lewy was the territory manager for Puerto Rico, US Virgin Islands, and the Dominican Republic, and also the enterprise segment and public sector lead for that region. He had joined Microsoft from Infocorp Uruguay as a regional, which is a regional Microsoft partner focused on infrastructure and software development services, where he was general manager again for the Caribbean and Central America, and oversaw both a significant business growth, but also the first expansion into the United States. He will be joined by two more colleagues, Mr. Irwin Williams, who's chief software engineer at Teleios Systems, a software company from Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Williams is a professional software developer who has been building software for about just 2 decades. Over the course of his career, he's been building cloud, mobile, Windows, and web applications, and also interactive SMS applications. Remember, at one time, we all used SMS messages. He admits to writing much less code nowadays than he did before. And that at times, and I found that quite nice in his CV, that he prefers to abandon this integrated development environment for good old-fashioned simple whiteboard, and that he will find reason to go to one of those whiteboards in almost any meeting. He also lectures from time to time at local universities, drawing from his experiences across life to weave technology lessons in that are sometimes insightful. Last but not least, this afternoon, we will be joined by Dr. Maurice McNaughton, who's the director of the Center for IT-Enabled Innovation at the Mona School of Business and Management at UWI. His research spans the domain of emerging open ICT ecosystems and includes areas such as open data, big data, mobile financial services, and digital capacity building. He integrates extensive industry experience with focused academic research about the strategic use of ICT as an enabler of business innovation in small and large enterprises, as well as a growth enabler for developing economies. So my pleasure is really to welcome the 3 gentlemen here this afternoon. A warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us. As I already said this morning, we had around 140, 150 participants in each of the rounds. So we're looking very much forward to hearing from you, but then also taking a little bit of time to respond to comments and questions from our participants. And on this note, it's my pleasure to hand over the floor to Mr. Lewy, who will be leading us on with the keynote speak.
Thank you very, very much, Marina. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start first by expressing my gratitude to all the organizers of such great event with so much reach and diversity. The entire Caribbean is present here, so I'm super glad to be here. And I also want to recognize the high caliber professionals we'll have in the panel to have the conversation and respond to questions. The primary focus of my session is data. And we have to put things first into context. We are in the midst of this fourth industrial revolution that has digital transformation at its core. And this new paradigm turns data into the gold of this new era. And cloud computing, the great enabler to make all this happen. Most of us live in emerging countries and emerging economies, and we normally struggle with competitiveness and innovation. The amazing news we have these days is, for the first time in history, we are in front of a unique opportunity to compete in equal terms with any other country, region, or entity in the planet, because we have the same technology at the same time and for the same price in every single corner of the planet. And that, in practical terms, is empowering every government institution, every entrepreneur, every company and human being in Trinidad and Tobago, in Jamaica, in the Caribbean as a whole, to achieve more and aspire to better opportunities in equal terms. Today, we will be talking about the why related to data, but most of all, how to really turn data into a strategic asset. One thing this pandemic crisis is teaching us is that no business is immune to crisis, and no organization is 100% resilient. But companies with digital capabilities have been able to pivot more rapidly and respond better to their customers' needs. A common situation we are seeing is that companies recognize their data is or should be super valuable, but they struggle on how to really make it become a strategic asset. And the context is making everything much, much tougher. If we consider the amount of data being created internally and externally in an organization, the different types of data we have, from real-time social media signals to unstructured information, and the speed we need to react to it, it's unprecedented. This all brings a lot of potential for differentiation, but at the same time makes answering the questions and putting there below much harder. So what do we do then? How will be our approach? For that, I will cite a Harvard Business Review Analytics Service study that, in my view, summarizes well what needs to get done and matches our view that organizations need to do 4 things right. And these things are: first, overcome divisional and system data silos in the face of exponential data growth to obtain a holistic view of their business. Secondly, deliver insights from these systems that I mentioned to everyone in the organization in an easy to use, yet performant and cost-effective manner. The third point is to upgrade and integrate slow legacy databases and data warehouse systems to take advantage of cloud scale benefits. And finally, last but certainly not least, ensure data privacy and security is at the forefront, with robust organizational policies supported by system controls. And I understand that we are all clear on the why to embrace digital transformations and what potentially are the benefits that we are getting. So that's the reason we want to embark in these journeys and get the benefit of it. Data-driven digital transformation can help organizations make more informed decisions, model policy impacts, deliver services which better meets people's needs, and operate much more efficiently. So it's really worth it to go into the journey. And I have plenty of examples I could share afterward. For the sake of time, I will be running and then sharing with the organizers. To answer all that, we have oriented around the concept of digital feedback loop. With data and intelligence at the core, this is how organizations unlock new value for their customers. For them to be successful, organizations need the capability to digitally connect every facet of their business, from their customers to their employees, from their operations to their products. Flowing across and through the ecosystem in which an organization operates is a constant stream of data. It is then this sum of data that, if captured and harnessed with applied intelligence, enables better decisions and transformative processes, so we can do things differently to create new experiences, new ways of working, new outcomes we are pursuing. These new outputs also will create new data by itself, which can help us learn more, to help us refine things further, and create this virtuous cycle that goes on and on and on. In fact, we see that the future growth across all industries and the business models of the organizations within them will be driven in large part by applying this new breed of digital technologies to more intelligently engage customers, and you see the 4 pillars there, transform products and services, optimize operations, and empower employees. Historically, customers have faced a difficult trade-off when choosing data solutions to address their needs. Do they choose various point solutions that are powerful yet disconnected from each other? Or do they choose the broad solution, even if it is less powerful for a given workload? Entities of all types, where we are talking about privately held institutions, government institutions, NGOs, and academic institutions, should not have to make this trade-off when choosing solutions to drive their digital transformation. They need connected, effective solutions offering depth and cohesion to transform and become more resilient in today's environment. Now, it's important to remember that digital transformation is never a picture. It's not one size fits all scenario neither. But if you think about it as a journey with incremental steps towards a long-term goal, it becomes a much less daunting proposition. And organizations that are successfully going through this digital transformation journey are the ones that look at strategy, culture, unique potential, and capabilities as the foundational elements first, and then turn technology with a specific role in mind. It's not all the way around. Technology is a tool that will come afterwards when we define all these important components. Companies who thrive, though, do so only by capturing critical information across software-infused products, operations, customer engagement, and employees through what we call the digital feedback loop. The digital feedback loop, or DFL, takes the signal from new software-infused sources, brings it together, and uses the insights to drive continuous innovation. That is why we call it continuum to unlock digital transformation. We've identified this key to success by studying these patterns and disruptions across industries and looking actually inward in our own business, our own organization. To make this happen for your organization, you need a partner to ease your company through this challenging evolution successfully. We understand that Microsoft is the right partner to get this process going, to get the guidance through every step of the process, because we understand the challenges you face. Not long ago, and even today, we are facing them too. So it's not that Microsoft has a different reality, but we are going through this digital transformation by ourselves. The digital feedback loop breeds success by allowing companies to improve customer experience based on their continually evolving needs and innovate based on what customers really want, actually in 2 parts. First is capturing critical information across software-infused products, as I mentioned, operations, customer engagement, and employees. And secondly, is taking that signal, digital feedback, and driving it back into the products and services we deliver. Everything is about starting the digital transformation journey is in essence start by being data-driven. And that will require for us to focus on these 3 pillars: data culture, data capabilities, and define our unique potential. So I will start by data culture. And it's interesting to bring these quotes because they inspire us and irritate us in a good way. So saying that 50% of transformation fail to deliver impactful results because people's behavior doesn't change. I can mention also Jack Welch, saying if the rate of change in the outside is higher than in the inside, the end is near. So clearly we have to manage people change, and that we can do that by having this data culture approach. Establishing actually a data culture in an organization is critical for success in our transformation. It supports your strategy and vision, as well as enables and empowers everyone in your organization to make impact-oriented decisions. The key characteristics of data culture include democratizing access to data in a responsible fashion to enable transparency across the organization. Secondly, empowering and encouraging employees to make impact-oriented decisions based on data, not on established routines. So at the end of the day, you get what you are trying to pursue in a way that could be much less dynamic, nor based on real data. The third point is nurturing a growth mindset environment of continually learning, experimenting, and iterating. Here I can refer to you the book of Carol Dweck, this neuro psychiatrist. The name of the book is Mindset, and basically is explaining what is growth mindset and in comparison with fixed mindset. So it's a pretty interesting book, and it's easy to read, very, very small. These are the fundamental elements of a data culture and things that we actually observe in our own organization as we continue with our own digital transformation journey, as I explained. This transformation called for us to shift our mindset. Actually, our CEO worldwide, Satya Nadella himself, put it in this way. As a culture, we are moving from a group of people who know it all, the old Microsoft as we call it, to many years ago, to a group of people who want to learn it all. This is the only way we will make progress toward our mission of empowering every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. Another way we like to phrase this is that the only place where knowing comes before learning is in the dictionary. Bottom line, our culture fuels our ambitions as a company. Now that we discuss culture, let's talk about data capabilities needed for a successful transformation. Successful data-driven transformations include these 5 capabilities. First, data governance. In essence, it's discovering, protecting, and providing access to data in a responsible and yet compliant way. Data modernization. In essence, modernizing our data state and establishing a foundation that is future-proof and connects all your sources of data. Cloud-native apps. In essence, supporting high-performance applications built on cloud-native services and design principles. Analytics and insights. Here we are talking about turning your data into actionable insights for everyone in the organization. Finally, data science is applying artificial intelligence to your data to predict outcomes and provide engaging experiences to your ecosystem, the ones that you serve. So let's now unpack these capabilities and explore what Microsoft or how Microsoft provides value in each of one of them. I have to accelerate for the sake of time. I just will be giving an idea of each one of those. Starting by data governance. Is clearly at top of mind for most business leaders today. If, as a business leader, you don't know where your data is, you don't know what your future is in your organization. And of course, there are urgent compliance needs too. Regulations and compliance guidance appear every day in every single industry, in governments, worldwide standards. This is why, in this particular case, we developed Azure Purview. It's a data governance service that discovers, catalogs, and helps assess compliance exposure across all environments. We are talking on-premises, multi-cloud, and software as a service data. We include all the environments. And as an example, organizations as Grundfos are seeing incredible value in Purview. They have scanned and classified more than 100 million assets across their data estate and over 16,000 Power BI workspaces to bring transparency and accelerate data sharing across the organization, enabling them to build solutions to help improve the environment and people's lives. This is one example of many. I will try to accelerate. So, data modernization is often the first step for any successful digital transformation. Migrating and modernizing your application databases allows you to focus on your application and not your database. You no longer have to worry about scaling your applications to meet high demand. Security and management is made simple, and you are always up to date with the latest and greatest databases, features in these cases, irrespective of whether you prefer proprietary or open source databases. I will bring once again Microsoft Azure that delivers a robust portfolio of operational databases that support all your data, whether it is nearly in rows and columns, or it's a collection of image files, if you're talking about video, audio, or social sentiment. We are really proud to be recognized by leading analysts as Gartner or Forrester for our leadership in operational databases. Microsoft has been named a leader in the databases Magic Quadrant for 8 years running. We also have been named a leader in Forrester NoSQL and data waves for the past 3 years. So whether it is migrating or modernizing your existing applications or building net new cloud native applications, we have a database that fits your specific use and use cases and needs. And that's very important to mention, because sometimes people could think Microsoft then SQL Server, and it's not like that. And we will talk more about that in a few minutes. So while many of our customers are migrating and modernizing existing applications, we also see a fantastic momentum for building net new applications that are cloud native. These applications are powering important customer-centric business processes and applying innovative new cloud technologies like real-time personalization, ultra-low latency, super important also for the Caribbean, and serving up customers' algorithms. When it comes to cloud-native application, Azure Cosmos DB is a great example. It's trusted now by tens of thousands of customers for their most demanding applications. And I can share cases, as you are seeing there, of a petabyte scale of Coca-Cola, or processing these 15 billion requests a day by Symantec. But in particular in Microsoft ourselves, or our own products, in this case, Azure Cosmos DB is also loved by Microsoft internally and powers some of our most important workloads. For example, Azure Cosmos DB powers the Azure portal and Microsoft Teams itself. As our customers scale their Teams demand during the COVID-19 pandemic, the size of Teams data in Cosmos DB grew 3 times to 1.4 petabytes. And the daily transaction rate quadrupled from 0.25 to 1 trillion transactions per day, while maintaining the 6 nines availability. So pretty impressive. So as the volume, variety, and velocity of data continues to grow, so too does the need to get timely insights. Azure provides the scale and performance needed to deliver immediate insights on your business at an incredible value. And I will illustrate this with some examples very fast. In the case of Walgreens, which recently migrated from a legacy Teradata appliance and relies on Azure Synapse for its analytics, they immediately saw a 3 times growing performance increase at 1/3 of the cost. A ClearSale is a fraud protection service provider, was able to speed time to insights from 1 week to 6 hours with the Azure Synapse. And I have many other examples that hopefully I can share afterwards also through the organizers of this event. Finally, a strong data and analytics foundation unlocks the potential of data science and machine learning. Organizations looking for Spark-based machine learning solutions, the combination of Azure Databricks in these cases with Azure Machine Learning allows data science teams to turbocharge machine learning on big data. And that applies to organizations of all industries that are deploying that. Just to give an example, by incorporating Azure Machine Learning's and responsible ML capabilities, in the case of Ernst & Young, they were able to choose from recommended model design to mitigate bias. And after the mitigation, EY was able to reduce the disparity from 7% to less than 0.5%. Or Scandinavian Airlines that accurately identifying fraud with a proficiency that wasn't possible through manual methods in the past. The new system predicts fraud with a 99% of accuracy, and there are much more examples to be. So It is very important to remark that Azure data services are deeply integrated with all the services in Microsoft Cloud. So we're talking about Microsoft 365 in productivity, Power Platform, Dynamics for business applications. Everything is integrated on Azure. Finally, I will refer very fast to why we say that Microsoft runs on trust. And our primary value prop here is anchored based on saying that in case of trust, we are committed to privacy protections that give you control over how data is used, managed, and accessed. We believe deeply in the need to use new technologies such as artificial intelligence responsibly, and we are committed to the advancement of AI driven by ethical principles, but to put people first, always to put people first. And in terms of security and compliance, highest levels of commitment to security with $1 billion annually investment in security, and our cyber defense operations centers that bring together security response experts from across the company to help protect, detect, and respond 24/7 to security threats in real time. So it's pretty interesting here. We have more than 3,500 full-time security professionals working with us. We process more than 6.5 trillion global signals daily, so it's pretty impressive. For the sake of time, I will be stopping here, but it's important to remark other perspectives that we have to take into consideration when we enter these areas in terms of sustainability, in terms of responsible AI, in terms of ethical AI. So to recap, the capabilities you leverage are just part of a digital transformation journey. We'll also need to clarify our vision and strategy, refine our culture, and identify our unique potential. Together, these elements position our organizations for the resilience that helps us respond quickly to changing conditions. Thank you very much, and I will pass the token back to Marian for
perfect
the session.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Lewy. This is a really excellent presentation because what I liked a lot is it underscored the importance of, you know, this kind of digital transformation and platforms of intelligence like Azure in taking us and governments and societies towards a smarter future. But I also like that that you highlighted how challenging it is to tap into this enormous potential of big data and extracting value from it in an easy to use manner, but also in a cost-effective and safe manner. That's something that came up this morning also. And I would like now to open the floor and widen the discussion, because Mr. Williams and Mr. McNaughton also joined us now here as a panelist, and kick off a little bit the comment and feedback loop here. And for the participants in this virtual space, if I can ask you to ask and post your comments or questions at the bottom on the right-hand side, you find a Q&A button. If you type your question and comments in, it comes up here and we can start responding to it. So please go to the Q&A button at the bottom right-hand side. But just to kick it off in an open manner, you know, here, you know, as Caribbean countries like Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, you know, the whole Caribbean pursue sustainable development and move towards this smarter future, right? The governments talk about societies already. There is a bigger need, right, to bridge this economic, social, and digital divide. So I'd like to hear from our panel, maybe starting with Mr. Williams and then going over to Mr. McNaughton, and also in response to what Mr. Lewy just shared. How can these emergent technologies in your eyes, like, you know, cloud computing, be better used to improve services, service delivery, and the overall development push in the countries that we're working with here in the Caribbean? Where would you see the priorities, or so to say, the next steps that you think both governments, but also academia and the private sector should take? Mr. Williams, if I can invite you to maybe comment.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Hope you're having a great day. I think it's a very broad question. It's a great question to start off with because we could take it in any direction.
Exactly.
I found myself thinking about the word development because I'm a software developer, and for some reason, when I put them together these days with cloud computing specifically, as a developer, you have access to so many tools that in the past may have taken a while for you to kind of gather together to get yourself started. And if I kind of flip the order around of development, delivery, and services, if you can develop things more quickly, you can experiment with things, you can put things out for it to be proven or develop proofs of concept more quickly, then your ability to get feedback about whether those things you're trying is working, then that actually takes you a much shorter time. And therefore your ability to evolve services, so you'd have developed stuff, went ahead and delivered it to your target audience, and then gone ahead and gotten feedback. The services that your applications and activities were built on top of really can evolve much more quickly than the past. So in my mind, maybe policymakers should be trying to find ways to ensure you can remove some of the ceremony or the dross around getting things developed and into the hands of an audience, because that way you can then benefit from the way cloud computing and computing in general today works. I'll just leave that as a starting response to the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And handing over to Mr. McNaughton.
Yes, thank you, Marina. Thank you for that really comprehensive presentation, Mr. Lewy. In fact, one of the things I like about your emphasis as you went through that narrative was the idea that the technical capabilities, and you're talking about a lot of very sophisticated technology platforms in terms of Azure Cloud and the related technologies. But you started with the organization understanding at a strategic level, what am I about? Creating the culture for my organization and being very clear on what is my unique potential to exploit these technologies. And that's just so really important, Marina, that we don't start with a preoccupation and a technocentric approach with the technologies themselves. The context matters, and that's whether you're in the enterprise or you're looking at it at a larger national ecosystem. Having said that, I think things like cloud and IoT and some of the other disruptive technologies mentioned are so important. I think of them as equalizers, right? So 10 years ago, you had the technology haves and have-nots, those organizations who could afford these technologies. And then unfortunately, the small, medium enterprises, the organizations that don't have deep pockets, that really just didn't have access. Now, as Mr. Lewy said, everybody has access. I mean, it's just a matter of the scale of your workload. But if I'm a small business and I have 2 employees, and I have 1,000 customers and a small number of transactions, I have access to the same kind of digital technology capabilities as the largest bank or your largest petrochemical company. And that's really important because it really does help to bridge the divide between those that traditionally had access and those that don't. So for me, I think of cloud and IoT and all of these capabilities as being able to hand off the access, and now we can focus on, well, what do we do with it? And that brings us back to the question of what's your strategy? What's the culture of your organization? How does this create value for you? As important questions that business leaders have to answer as they look to these kinds of digital technologies.
Perfect. Thank you. Maybe adding another question for I mean, basically all of you, but let's go back to Mr. Williams, because the point was made that now we have access, and the access is now global to the sort of services, to the systems, which was more limited. But across the Caribbean, and it comes up and came up a lot in the preparation of this big data forum, we recognize challenges with the lack of data, but in some cases also the quality or the poor quality that hinders sound decision making. And one of the biggest problems seems to be in this big data landscape, the lack of people with deeper analytical skills, right, who are trained to work with those systems that are now available and with the systems within. So maybe a question to all of you, moving ahead as governments and societies are more adamant about the digitalization and moving towards this direction. In your eyes, how can we improve the statistical capacities, the capabilities in Trinidad and Tobago, but also across the Caribbean? How would you go about, what would your recommendation be to governments, but how can the private sector and academia also kick in? Maybe starting with Mr. Williams, who is a software developer.
So I think one word that screams out to me is advocacy. And I kind of I really want to celebrate what Maurice said a little while ago around equalization. For some reason, I've been hearing the notion of digital equalization for a long time, but when Mr. Lewy said, you have access to the same cloud, same platforms, wherever you are in the world, that should shake us up even more. It is there. In the past, you needed to wait, and in the Caribbean, of course, it's an acute thing waiting for the packages to arrive, the time it takes to get shipped. There is no package waiting in terms of, well, I'm sorry to my developer friends, there are packages on that side, but in general, there's no package waiting for you to get access to cloud. It's there. And so I think advocacy is the next place in the hierarchy of considerations. People just don't know. We might sit here in a meeting like this, many of us, even the attendees, you may have attended many forums like this in the past, and you are aware of the terminologies, and we are the choir. But the people we are trying to get to, either to them, the expertise is somewhere apart from our localities. We don't have experts here who could teach them, or it's inaccessible because of cost or knowledge and things like that. When really, so for Teleios, Teleios has put its hat into the ring for that time and time again. We've held hackathons. Our Teleios Code Jam was run for 10 years. And so we went into the schools to demonstrate what it means to be a real world software development company. And we continue to provide access for that kind of information. I think the private sector can definitely do that. We can show how we are using data, what we need from data, and showing that those who don't know can get a sense that the possibility exists, it's real, I can do it myself. And in doing that, create that groundswell of activity, because the quality data and analysis at the top only works if you have the processes underneath that for data gathering and data cleaning and data inspection, all that good stuff. But those who can do the data gathering and data cleaning, they don't know that there is some value after that. So sometimes it feels, and this is some feedback I've gotten, it feels like you're collecting data for no one to use, for no one to see. And so there's a real challenge in advocacy, letting people know what we can do with it, what we actually are doing with it. And that's what I'd like to see us spend some time developing some tools and strategies around.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ms. McNaughton, Mr. Lewy, anything to add?
I like very much the approach of Mr. Williams. And first and foremost, I personally like the definition of cloud computing in all its shapes and forms, and whether it's software as a service, infrastructure, or platform as a service, in reality as a catalyst of progress for countries. That's the essence. It's really fueling the opportunity to turn ideas, grit, passion, into something meaningful. We really can compete head to head with any other, let's say, powerful country in the world. So I like very much the approach of having communities. So no one has the key for success or the book of success in a revolution. That's why we call it the fourth industrial revolution. So it's so important to do it together. So to join forces, to go into journeys, to create center of excellence in some cases, work on every private company has to have their own corporate social responsibility approach. So we do many things in that regard, particularly for education, for skilling and reskilling, because if you want to really make a transformation happen in a country or a region, you need to think in digital inclusion first. Otherwise, it's just an opportunity for some. And we already know that this doesn't work properly this way. So that's why We work not only in education in K-12, for example, in early stages. We have plenty of programs for academic institutions. We have, in addition to that, special prices and so on to make it much easier for the academic institutions to embrace technology. But we also give, for example, at no cost, our full platform of Microsoft 365 in productivity and collaborations for all teachers, students, and administrative staff in academic institutions. So that really, once again, fuels on sparks digital transformation. In many cases, that is the way of families can get engaged, because they bring to their homes their devices with the right applications. So I believe that there are many opportunities to work this way, but also to take care of people that are not so young, but they need to make this transformation, and for that they have to be reskilled. So there are a lot of programs that we have to help reskilling. One of those, we call it from digital users to digital producers. So we help people get or embrace these digital capabilities to be ready to harness the opportunity of the digital transformation. So I believe that we can talk about for a long while, because I'm super passionate about how to make this real and tangible. But I believe that Mr. Williams' ideas were really on spot, and maybe Mr. McNaughton also have a perspective.
Yeah, sure. Just a very, very brief remark on that, because both yourself, Herbert, and Irwin have addressed it quite well. But Marina, as you said, if we have solved the problem of providing access, especially for smaller organizations, to the technology and the technology platforms, that's just part of the way. You know, the Caribbean has often been referred to in the literature as being data poor. You know, it's something that has been a kind of recurring theme. And there are three elements to that. I mean, one of them obviously is access to quality data and access to the technologies. But there are the cultural barriers that we have to solve. We have a propensity not to want to share. We have a propensity not to be data-driven in our decision-making or policy-making. Those are some of the cultural issues that Mr. Lewy mentioned, sort of elevated to the social and level of the economy at large. But the third element are the capabilities, the skills, the data scientists. As one quotation says, you know, we're drowning in data and information, but starving for wisdom. It suggests that we could have the technology platforms, we could have the quality data, but if we don't have those capabilities, then, you know, we're still going to fall short of being competitive as economies in the digital economy. And I believe data capacity building is probably the most urgent agenda item for us. And I see it at two levels, at the level of the specialist data scientists, but also in terms of broad-based digital and data literacy capacity building, which is an all of society approach that we have to take to that. And I think, you know, when we start to talk about this whole notion of a center of big data, I think those are some of the elements that it has to address, right? The data scientists will remain a scarce resource for some time, unfortunately, but the reality is that we can share those resources. If your Professor Patrick Hossain, who I know quite well, is building smart algorithms down in his center that can help us make better decisions in agriculture, then there's no reason why that can't be reusable in Jamaica or in Guyana or, you know, in Antigua, right? So we have to take regional approaches and shared data and shared data derivatives to accelerate, you know, or move up the value chain.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And also underscores really the need to look at regional solutions, especially across the Caribbean, bringing it back and not reinventing the wheel in each of the island states, but moving closer together. Before moving on to another question, I have two very direct questions targeting Mr. Lewy from the floor. One being, is Azure being used to capture biometric data? And the second one, does Microsoft provide any solutions to countries who may want to enforce data sovereignty?
Well, yes, to both. capturing, say, biometrics or processing. AI, vision AI is part of our value proposition in video artificial intelligence. You can add to that a series of components that we call cognitive services, and actually these cognitive services are a family of 29 services that can be used in the platform as a service model to process that in a very simple way. So that's why when we talk about the change in the paradigm of compute, we talk mostly about platform as a service, because it's more like instead of thousands of lines of code, you are much more inclined, and more will be happening, that we will be building systems and solutions as Legos. So we'll take these Lego pieces that conceptually are these platform as a services components, and you can do biometrics, you can do machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and we have more and more components that are coming open source in our platforms that are ready to use and to customize and to be improved. So this is one of the answers to the first questions. Because the second one is, yes, we have a team that is especially devoted to work with countries and with highly regulated industries in terms of data sovereignty, data residency, and there are plenty of documents that also we can share in the process of that sharing of how other countries dealt with that. Today, there's a lot of information and experience that would help us drive through the path that is more convenient to this particular scenario. In some cases, when it's that some especially critical data for some particular reason, we can use also what we call the Azure Stack. That is a local component that has a subset of the Azure services, and you combine this on-prem approach to Azure with the public cloud, so you create a hybrid environment. But in all the cases, my suggestion would be to trigger the conversations, because the worst that can happen is to stay in what we call the emotional fear, instead of going into rational discussions. Sometimes it's mostly that is inhibiting some countries to move ahead and to go into digital transformation journeys. It's mostly emotional fear instead of talking about rational conversations, discussions, that finally you can end up in the same place, but at least you went through the process.
Perfect. I think that also came up this morning in the first session we had with Minister Stuart Young, this idea of the irrational fear versus the analytics of what the issue really behind is. We just have a few minutes left, but I wanted to throw one question back to Mr. McNaughton. Because what also came up in the preparation of this big data forum, again, was this issue that most of the data that we generate today is really quite unstructured still, which means it comes in different forms and sizes. But from your point of view now, as an academic, how can platforms of intelligence, such like as Azure that we talked about as one model, I mean, there are more models out there, how can they support the work of academia and researchers with respect to big data in a way that here in the Caribbean, it's realistic and cost efficient? What do you see the way forward here?
Right. So, no, you're right. I mean, part of the challenge and complexity of handling big data is precisely that, in terms of the kind of variety and volume that comes with unstructured data. And so a lot of our traditional premises-based infrastructure just can't deal with it. We just don't have the storage capacity. We just don't have the compute capacity to deal with it. So, cloud platforms, cloud intelligence platforms like Azure offload a lot of that storage and processing burden. And so what that leaves is for academia and data scientists and researchers to focus on the problem solving. The platform takes the storage and processing load. So we can focus on the creative algorithms and the other things that big data analytics allows us to do. So, you know, it's the infrastructure problem can be addressed, but of course we need to build the kind of expertise and the specialists that can now explore these capabilities. And again, it comes back to Marina, the idea that that's where we need to focus, building those capabilities and sharing those resources across the region. The platforms take care of a lot of the heavy lift. And I know we're very short on time. I was going to give you a very quick example of an exercise we did earlier this year in Jamaica, working with the public health sector. A really interesting project where we were looking at the public health response to the pandemic, and in particular, trying to understand public sentiment around a number of government restrictions. And so you were able to take data from social media, Twitter, which is big data in its truest sense, and run a number of smart algorithms to understand, you know, how the public respond. And those are really interesting techniques that require, you know, creative algorithms, but the data, billions of transactions reside up in the cloud somewhere in Twitter or in Facebook or other places. The compute power resides here, and you can focus on the creativity that comes in building those kinds of algorithms that Irwin speaks about. And so it was a really interesting exercise and gave us quite good insight into where the public viewed you know, some of the government actions. And as you know very well, for public health, understanding public sentiment and perception of risk is important to understanding behavior. So those are the kinds of big problems that these approaches can help us to tackle. And the platforms really take care of the heavy lift and allow us to focus on the problem solving and the creativity and the innovation.
Thank you so very much. This
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
It's related to if you're listening to this conversation, you're hearing, oh, we have a problem with our data, maybe our data isn't clean. You may be hearing that as just an attendee, and therefore thinking, all right, before I go there with my data, I need to clean up everything. I need to make myself good. I need to prepare myself, as it were, before I really engage ideas around big data or ideas around even insights around data. And I want to suggest that'll be the wrong approach. I want to say, come as you are. Come to the cloud, come to big data tools with whatever data you have. It might be in bad PDFs, and bad PDFs as opposed to good PDFs are the ones where somebody took a photo of a table and they sent you the photo of the table in the PDF. Bring it all along, and you'll be surprised to find what the tools that exist today can do with that data. So it's really an appeal to everyone listening that there is room at the table for you, regardless of where you are in the data landscape. You may be at the place where your next step is to talk to some actual data science professionals, or you may need data engineers who simply going to ingest your data into some location and demonstrate to you what good things can happen. But I guess the call is, please let's not hear this and think, I'm not ready yet for that conversation. They don't mean me, they mean the next person. If you're in a room by yourself, look at a reflective place and say, it's me, it's me. And if you're there with people around, look around and say, they're talking to us. They're calling us to the table around big data conversations.
I like that notion of come as you are.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Unfortunately, the time is up. I think I would love to continue, but I'm really grateful for this wonderful ending of the very practical example of how creativity linked to the systems and the usage of it can produce this very relevant and important results. And the need to, in a very constructive manner made by Mr. Williams, for everyone to approach it as an open door to enter and to start using it. So look, fantastic, went very deep, Mr. Lewy, Mr. Williams, Mr. McNaughton. Thank you so much. It's super engaging for going deep, but also bringing in the look outside of the box kind of approach in a very engaging and constructive manner. Massive thank you for having joined us this afternoon. We are out of time for this segment, but another segment will start in roughly 10 minutes from now, looking at artificial intelligence and how to use it to analyze the performance of soccer player. So I'm very, very sure that a lot of more people will join that session. So thank you very much, colleagues and gentlemen. Fantastic session, full of gratitude on this side. Warm regards.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.